We're going to be listening to Scott Smallback. My name is Bob Black. I'm the division vice president for the multi-industry division. That's the division that sells and implements and supports Acumatica. Scott is one of our senior application consultants. He's going to be he's prepared a presentation for us, and he'll be answering and taking questions from you throughout the presentation and at the end. Feel free to raise your hand and ask questions and become, as interactive as you wish during this. We do like to, give you something to take away and some value for your time today. So, please feel free to ask questions and participate in what we're showing and talking about here today. Here's our one quick overview slide for Aktion. We continue to grow. This division is now just over 2 years old. It was a startup. It's the fastest growing division at Aktion. We've continued to grow as a business. We're a good, stable company. We're top 15 in the value-added reseller. That's our type of business within the software world. So, we obviously that's been many years of growth and building. I want to, This now is something that we want to kind of show you and kind of remind people about, or maybe if you've not been exposed to this before, I guess we want to kind of introduce you to this. We do have a process as we get people live, and we're going to turn you over to support. Our network operations center is where you would go to get help from us. There's many options on how you can interact with us and get help from Aktion when you need it. Our network operations center is the hub where that would go, and we have a dedicated calendar of people that are familiar with Acumatica that man the hotline daily during business hours. So you'll get through to somebody, you'll get assigned to a consultant, your name will come up as an Acumatica user, and we'll get you over to a consultant that can help you. And if necessary, go deeper into needs and requirements, and talks about level 1, 2, 3 in support here, and that's part of what this team will do. One way to do that is just calling us up, even if you don't have a support agreement. So this is not a requirement for you to get help from us, but we do offer a support agreement, and it's got some pretty interesting elements that can be very helpful. We've got a number of our customers that are already using this, and if you're interested in this, talk to your sales rep, reach out to myself, reach out to Scott Smallback. We can give you some information about exactly what that means and how it works. Basically, it's a way for us to still support you in conjunction with the consultants that maybe implemented your product and the software engineers that may have done some work in your system. All that works together in what's called a platform and application support agreement. So that is certainly an option also. It's it's important to say that we don't want to be your last call. If you're time and material and you still want help from us, you can do that. But we really want to be your first call. If with a platform and application support agreement in place, we want to be your first call, that we can help you through your issue, whatever that is, and not be that final step before you're frustrated with something, or something that's not working the way you expect, or an error message from Acumatica comes up. We really want to be part of the conversation. So part of the platform and application support agreement is that you can call us for anything and anything and everything. Okay. An important thing to remember is that being an Acumatica user, you are part of a community. Short slide here, just about to kind of maybe introduce you to it or reintroduce you to it. It's a place where product ideas are kept, and that's a place where the product managers for construction, distribution, manufacturing all go and find what the community is looking for and needing, and that's how they set their roadmap. It's also places where you can have forums and ask questions, discussion forums for news and announcement. It's also up on the top, you can see that's where you go for Acumatica direct support. Or there's a learn button up there also, which takes you to another very valuable place in the community, which is the Open University. So The Open University does have courses that can help you and take you through things that you want to learn about. But it also is a repository for some things like job aids, which is one of the terms that they use. There are Word documents out here that kind of go through a process, whether it's accounts payable, accounts receivable. There's a number of functions like that that are defined with a step-by-step process, and they're in the form of a Word document so that you can take that and you can customize it to your process or your way of improving things or whatever it might be. Those are customizable documents that you can kind of use to help standardize some of your business practices. So there is something that I think that is not talked about enough, and it's called product lifecycle. And it does have repercussions. And I guess I wanted to maybe just briefly present a slide about this and talk briefly about it. There is a beginning and a middle and an end to each release, right? So, Acumatica marches forward fairly quickly. They do have releases every 2 weeks. But the major releases, which is how this is broken up, the 21R2, 21R2, 22R1 that's coming soon, those are the major releases, and they do have a beginning, a middle, and an end. If you go beyond the end of a release and it's time for a renewal, there's a penalty for that. And that's part of, we're your partner, we'll go to bat for you, but that is something that's managed by Acumatica. Their support operations kind of cut off and move on to the next release, and they stop supporting some of the older releases, and that's some of their justification for there being that penalty. I guess wanted to bring that up again. Talk to your sales rep, talk to your consultant that you're already working with, whoever it might be. Just want to make sure that this is something that you're thinking about and planning for your system, and and reach out to us and interact with us, and we can help you decide. Get you in queue for an upgrade. There are some benefits. SaaS customers get a free sandbox that you can go and validate everything before you do the upgrade. That's something we can help you with also. But just know that there is a life cycle to the product, and want to make sure that you're aware of that. This is a really good, we can provide any of these slides that you need after this. The Customer Bill of Rights. This is the Acumatica Customer Bill of Rights. It's Acumatica's commitment to their customers. And again, it's maybe something that's not necessarily a common topic, but it is important. It's very important. You own your data. Maximum annual increases of 3%. There's a number of things in here that are clear and understandable, and this is a commitment from the executive team at Acumatica, and Aktion is one of the larger partners here, and I guess it's a commitment from us too to make sure that all this is working for you. So with that, we have this slide that Scott is going to step in and kind of maybe start talking about some of the bullet points here and some of the highlights. And then we're going to get into the product just right after this. So Scott, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Bob. That was a great introduction. Today, I'd like to, we're really only going to scratch the surface of the capabilities of import scenarios with Acumatica, but I'm hoping from this you'll see what the capabilities are. You might have some light bulbs go off of different integrations or automations that you'll leverage the import scenarios to take care of for you. And then I want to break down kind of the, where you can learn more about it. This is an ideal place to reiterate a couple of things that Bob said. This is a perfect place to partner with us as you're learning it, because there's a lot of complexity, and working with us maybe on the first one or two, or maybe just working together to get through that first or second one, and then coming back to us when you run into roadblocks. This is an area where I'll show you some different situations that you may not just instantly realize what the error is or how to troubleshoot it, and being able to reach out to us and really, something that we've seen already is going to save a lot of time, because I know that internally all of the consultants have, hit our heads against these different errors where we're like, not necessarily errors, but it's just, why is the system working the way it is? And once you understand it, it makes sense, but it's not something, having somebody that you can reach out to is key. And I'll also point you to the Open University, like Bob was talking about, where you can learn more about, about working with import scenarios. But basically with import scenarios, you're able to bring in or pull out data, whether it's from a file, maybe you have some kind of internal database, a SQL Server database or something in your environment that you need to connect to and bring information into or out of Acumatica. Maybe there's a third-party website that you can get information from that the import scenario can connect to and take information again in or out. Maybe you have orders that come into you in a spreadsheet format on some scheduled basis, and you can configure an import scenario to grab that spreadsheet, process those orders in automatically on your behalf. So as well as, maybe you have a bulk update of information that you want to do. Maybe there's some records that you've identified that need to be deleted from the system. Import scenarios is a place that you can do that. There's basically three pieces of an import scenario, and this is where it starts to get a little a little more complex than just, I'm just pulling up a file and importing it in. But once you see the capabilities, there's just a lot of functionality available to you. So it's definitely worth the learning curve to to work through this process if you have data that needs to be brought in and out of the system. And those pieces are, there's a data provider, which is where you're defining the connection to a particular file or a database, and we'll set that up and I'll show you how you interact with that. Then there's the actual import scenario itself, and that's where you configure what data provider we're using, the mapping of the individual fields, if there's any logic to that mapping that needs to occur as it's going through, maybe workflow items inside of Acumatica that need to occur, all take place within that import scenario. And then you can also restrict the data, the data provider maybe provides more information than what you're really wanting to, maybe you only want to work with certain customers or certain transactions. You're able to filter down the information that's actually included in that particular import scenario. So it's just capturing the records that you want. Then there's the actual import by scenario form, where you actually prepare the data and then run through the actual import, and we'll walk through that. We probably don't have time. Go ahead and Lauren, if you are able to switch it to where I can show my screen. We're probably gonna have to take a shortcut or two here to keep within time, but as much as possible, I do want to give you a good, kind of walkthrough of a sample import scenario. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. All right, is everybody, Bob, are you seeing that?
Yeah, we can see that. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So one thing just to point out really quickly here, I'm on the actual Open University for the course that works through import scenarios. It's the I-100 integration scenarios, and this has a full PDF training guide, and it even has a full set of sample files. And it's outside the scope of this call, but if you are going to be digging into more of the technical side of Acumatica, you are able to, install locally, which is what we'll see here, where I've got Acumatica installed locally, basically a 2-user environment at no cost, where you can then go ahead and install these files for training, there's tenants that are set up with all the information and configured for walking through these various training guides. And it's really a big value that I think people need to be aware of out here in the Open University. So, so it's the I-100 integration course. So here I am on my Acumatica, and if I go to the integration workspace, you'll see here I have data providers, import scenarios, export scenarios. And for the purpose of today, I'm going to go to data providers, and from that sample data set that we were just looking at from that training material, I have a set of files here in my Acumatica training, and it's that I-100 files for training. So Acumatica actually provides a nice set of samples of here's data providers that you can import. These are XML documents that you can import in to work through the examples, but they also are great references for how you might need, oh, I saw that sample or training one did something specific. Well, you can certainly refer back to these to see how those mappings were configured. Here's a whole couple dozen import scenarios that are already available in that training material. But for today, I'm going to go ahead and use one of these source files. I'm going to take this customer masters file, and we're going to use that as a sample here for just importing some customer information. So when I go to configure my data provider, I'm just going to give it a name, and so this will be user forum customer import. And then you specify what type of data we're bringing in. And as you can see here, there's a long list of, whether in this case it's a CSV file, I could have an Excel file, I could be connecting to a Microsoft SQL Server database. Maybe maybe your environment organization uses Salesforce, so you can connect to Salesforce and synchronize data. HubSpot is an e-marketing tool. So there's a lot of built-in providers already defined, or there's the capability even to create custom providers as well, should you have something unique. We'll connect to a CSV provider. And in this case, the only thing I need to change here is that file does, for some reason, even though it's a CSV file, they use semicolons in there as the delimiter between the fields. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. So now I can go ahead and just up in my files, just like in Acumatica, we can attach files here in this files area. And I'm going to browse to that customer file and upload it. And once I've brought that in, I can now go to the schema tab here, and I can activate the particular worksheet. So if you had multiple worksheets, they'd all be showing here. And now I can fill the schema fields from that file. And so the data provider here has gone out and it's just read that file. And here's the fields that are included in that customer import file. So standard things: customer name, customer class, address information, email, phone number. And that's really all I need to do to utilize this particular data file in an import scenario. This data provider can be, what's nice about this, you get this set up in a specific format. Then when you actually run the, if you have an ongoing or occasional import where you would need to keep running it over again, you can just upload, there's a place where you can update to the latest version of the file and just process in that new file and run it. So very convenient in that way. So you can use these data providers, you can use a single data provider on, as many or multiple actual import scenarios. So I'm going to go ahead and create an import scenario here. And I know I'm going a little fast, but this is a short user form. I do want to make sure you kind of see the whole flow here. So on the import scenarios, now I'm able to create a new import scenario. And just for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and actually open an existing one, because the data mapping piece where we would map those dozen fields or so would just probably take be a little boring for the call, and I don't know that you get the value of watching me hand enter all that information. So I'm going to go here to import new customers. All right, perfect. And so I had already created a test customer import provider, but you see it's the same fields. We've got the customer ID, customer name, address, and all of that. And so in here, what we've done is we've specified the name of our import scenario, and then we actually select the screen name. What's interesting about import scenarios, and you really have to keep in mind as you're creating these, is you have to think about, if I'm on the actual customer screen and I'm manually entering a customer, what do I need to do? I see I have to have a class, I have to have a status, I need that country filled out. And that's going to be the same case when you do something through an import scenario. It's exactly like you're sitting there typing in that record. And so you'll see here that the first thing I want to do here is so I find my form, and so that's the form that we're going to, the customer form is the one we're going to use. And then we say what provider we're going to use. And then which object, which spreadsheet we're going to use, and then we can go ahead and start doing our mapping. And normally this would be blank, and you would add in all these mappings. But here we've got those mapped for us. And always the first thing you want to put in there is that key value. And in this case, it's that customer ID. So when I would pick my account CD, which is the identifier for the account, the system's automatically going to populate these first couple lines for me. So you don't even have to worry about those. Then you would just map the customer ID to the customer ID. And then for the most part, you can see that we're matching, it makes sense what fields we're mapping. The one thing to notice though is in the target object, notice that this is the actual area on the screen for that form. So customer summary, and then the account name here is under general account info. So again, if I go to my WebEx popped up on there on me. Hold on one second. There we go. It went away finally. So what I was saying is that see how the account info is on the general tab here under account info. So when you're looking for how you're mapping these fields, they're actually letting you know the area on the screen is where you're going to find those particular fields. So anywhere where there's a section on the form, it's going to be broken out. Primary contact, account address, whatever the case may be, and then you just map those fields. And in this case, we're just doing a straight mapping, but you can do a fair amount of formulas and things like that over here in this source value and field. So as you get to be creating more complex import scenarios, there's logic you can do there. And in addition to the Open University, don't forget you've always got the help icon right here. And that's going to give you, full information about working with import scenarios, creating them, working with parameters. All the details here are also available in the online help. But one thing I want to point out is this is where, as you're thinking about your different import scenarios, is some of the gotchas that you might run into that you might not even think about. And what I want to show you here is you notice that country comes before state in the order here. So you always want to be making sure that when you're mapping these fields, you're mapping them in the order that you would need to enter them if you were creating it manually. Because you'll notice if I go into the customer screen here, and if I didn't have a country, oh, I did not mean to do that. There we go. Notice if I don't have a country, that I'm not able to fill out the state. So if I had run that import scenario with state above country, which I've personally done before, the state's not going to get populated because it's read-only at this point until the country's populated. As soon as I put in US and it's populated in the United States, now I've got the state lookup available and I could populate it. So little things like that is where you can get tripped up because you're saying, hey, how could there be any issue with this mapping? It's just the state to the state. And that's a perfect example of something that you might not think of that would occur. So I've got all my fields mapped, and then at the end, I've got what action I'm going to take. And in this case, I'm just going to save it. But this is also where if you were going to do a deletion, you could do delete, for example. And then any of your, notice you've got all your workflow items that might be on that top menu. Again, if I go back up to the customer, and you've got your workflow here at the top, any of those items are available as well. So you can really automate not just the field mapping, but also additional functions that you might want to invoke as part of the import scenario. So once you've got that completed and saved, then you actually go and run it. So if we go to import by scenario, this is where the actual processing takes place. And we'll open up that one we were just looking at. Import new customers. And the first thing I'm going to do is prepare the data. And so what that does is it pulls in all the information here and shows us in this nice grid form, the data that's going to be populated, and they're all flagged as active. The first thing I like to do here is actually go ahead and toggle that and just select one record and save it. And now I just want to test that one record. So I'm going to go ahead and say import. and now you see it's executing and it's completed. So now we've gone ahead and we've created this shortstop silk screening customer. So again, if I go up to the top here, again, I've got my WebEx window is not cooperating, so I'll just go ahead and bring it down. Now you notice when I go to my list of customers, there it is. We've got auto numbering enabled, so it went ahead and auto numbered it to our next customer number. And here it is, shortstop silkscreen, default Los Angeles, all the information from the import scenario, processed in and created this customer. If I was going to go ahead, I'm going to activate this next one. And I'm going to go ahead, we know that country is a required field. So I'm going to go ahead and actually just delete that right out of this grid here, because the prepared data is what the system's working with. And so if I go ahead and save that, and now that one's processed, it's not going to process this again. So it's active. That one's been processed. Now we're going to process the second one. I'll go ahead and import it. And notice here we get an error. Country can't be empty. So any required fields, any business logic that's occurring when you're entering a record for whatever your import scenario is taking care of, all of that same functionality is going to occur when you do it through an import scenario. So if you've got custom conditions that are requiring different information, all of those are going to be enforced, and it's going to give you an error. This one, luckily, very clear. Sometimes they're less clear. But again, if I go ahead and just populate that back to US, save it again, and import it, now it's going to go ahead and successfully import that elite answering customer. And I could go ahead and I could toggle and activate this entire list, and it would go ahead and bring them all in. But I think that shows you, again, just so we're wrapping up and being respectful of time, I think that shows you the flow there, where we create the data provider, we activate the fields that are going to be used in the import scenario. We then do the mappings in the import scenario itself, where we go ahead and we configure the actual job that we want to work through. I should have said new. So limit my list down. So that's the actual import scenario. This is where we're going to do most of the actual work of the mapping, and then you actually run it by doing import by scenario. And this is exactly what I was talking about. Like if I needed, let's say this is an occasional list that we get that's refreshed, I could upload the file version right here, populate in with the fresh list, prepare and import that file. So again, just scratching the surface, but want to make sure we're showing you kind of the capability here, showing you where you can learn more about it in Open University, and also recommending that this is a good place to engage with us on some level of consulting as you're learning, just to keep your productivity, efficiency, and frustration level in check. There's a lot of value that we can provide to help you as you're, if you're technically inclined and really want to dig deep into these integrations. With that, Lauren, if we have any questions.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. I don't see any questions yet. If you do have them, you're welcome to put them into the little chat section on your WebEx window. But give you a minute or so to add those in if you'd like.
Yeah, we certainly are trying to keep these to a half an hour to be respectful of your time, but it's a lot of detail that goes into a really short presentation. So maybe a bit of a fire hose there coming at you, but certainly, hopefully it gets the curiosity going and the thoughts of gosh, how can we use this, or maybe go out and think about take the training that Scott's kind of showed us there. I think that's great first step for anybody who kind of wants to look at how to use this tool that you own. It's part of your platform. It's part of what you've got there with Acumatica.
Okay, I don't see any questions, so I think that we are good.
All right, well, thanks everybody for attending. And again, just like Bob said, if you have questions, if you want to reach out to Bob or myself or Lauren, any of us can get you pointed in the right direction with any assistance that you might need.
I do have one that came in real quick. I'm sorry.
Good.
This person has asked, we have sales categories set up for over 9,500 unique items and have not been able to figure out how to include the multiple layers of sales categories in import scenarios. Should we talk offline about this?
Yeah, absolutely. That's, so here we're talking about a master record import, basically the simplest scenario that we can look at. There's examples that we could help, drill into your specific case. But even in some of those examples, though, you can see how you can get to detail records, like line items off of orders and things. And so it could be a similar case there, where to get the matching record to be able to update, it can be tricky. So certainly reach out.
Yeah, I think Scott's kind of showed you kind of a common workflow to bring in some master files, but this is a tool set. It's not a template necessarily. It's something you can use multiple times, but it can also be created from scratch. I mean, if you've got a very specific need that doesn't fit into one of these things that already exists, they can be built from scratch. And I think some of our consultants and software engineers actually even prefer to build them from scratch, just so that they do exactly, what we want them to, depending on the business case or the use case that's presented. Great question.
All right, that was the only one that I saw, so I think we're good.
Thank you everyone for attending. These will be monthly. Please consider signing up for the next one. They're going to have the same kind of slides in the beginning, so that might be repetitious, but there's going to be more good content that we're going to be presenting in these meetings, these events. So thank you so much for attending, and thank you for your attention, and thank you for your time. We so appreciate it.
We'll wrap it up. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.